Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. We've been talking about why Teslas are the price they are, and despite such a price, can still beat the Toyota Corolla on units sold, even though they're that much more expensive. Well, this got me calculating, and I think I might have something to go on to work out how many Model Ys Tesla might actually be able to sell. Okay, carrying on from the last episode when we were working out demand for the Model Y relative to the Toyota Corolla and how people think this car is simply too expensive to outsell the Corolla. I was going through it to try and explain that it won't just be that Tesla will only sell the long-range version at around this $60,000 price point. There will be lower cost variants that will have much more demand. Also, people have it in their head that when Elon says the Model Y will beat the Toyota Corolla on sales, that it will match the Toyota Corolla, i.e. around 2 million sales a year. Well, beat and match are actually two different words that have two different meanings. Match would be 2 million, beat would be anything above 2 million. In the past, I've speculated that Tesla might be selling over 3 million units of Model Y a year or so, but judging by what I was just calculating in the last video, I might have been mistaken. Just going over this math again, we have perhaps an annual production of 300,000 Model Y long ranges and performance from Fremont. We have 500,000 Model Ys from Shanghai. Granted, the majority of those are likely to be standard range, but will stay within the domestic market and surrounding nations, i.e. not the US or Europe. Then we have a run rate of 500,000 by the end of 2022 for Model Ys from Texas and Berlin. That should all be by that stage using 4680 batteries. Remember, if you think demand is high for a 2170 Model Y, it's going to be a lot higher for a 4681. Oh wait, not everyone is an avid Tesla enthusiast like us and don't even know the difference, right? Sure, maybe, but the car will just be that much more superior. It will drive better, likely have improved performance and range. Thus, it's better on paper and more valuable, which equates to more demand still. But let's add this up. At the start of 2023, we're at a run rate of 300,000 Fremont long-range and performance Model Ys, 500,000 long-range and performance Model Ys from each Berlin and Texas, and at least 500,000 Model Ys from Shanghai, of which perhaps only 250,000 are long-range and performance. That is already over 1.5 million Model Ys that are just long-range and performance. Wow! Now granted, this is supply, and we are assuming that demand for these cars will continue. Bear in mind, these nations that are the largest purchasers of the long-range versions are likely offering subsidies and rebates too. And perhaps if we enter a recession, then this might change things too. But the macro factors are much harder to determine. I mainly focus on micro factor and work on ceteris paribus, all else being equal, including inflation. But this demand is at a $59,000 price point. Excluding any extras like FSD, we only need to hit 2 million to beat the Toyota Corolla in sales, and we're at 1.5 million for just the long range and performance versions. When we add the standard range from China as well, we're at 1.85 million. And just because Tesla are at a run rate of 500,000 from Berlin and Texas doesn't mean they're stopping there either. I think Texas could ramp up the long-range Model Ys a lot more and still have the demand if there is an $8,000 rebate. In other words, we could possibly beat the Toyota Corolla on sales with just about the long-range and performance Model Ys. I had not considered this before. I'd just been assuming it would be done with a lower cost standard range version. Alright. Well, what happens when we do add in a lower cost standard version? Presumably around the time when Tesla has ramped up their own in-house LFP batteries? Well, what will the price be? Long-range Model Y is $59,000. Long-range Model 3 is $51,000. The price of the equivalent Y is $8,000 more. Wow, that's quite a bit. No wonder Tesla focus on the Y more. That's a lot more profit margin. The standard range Model 3 is $45,000. If we add this $8,000 difference onto that, then we hit $53,000. Then in the US, you might get an $8,000 rebate. Of course, the margin on this car will be insane too. It will, however, cannibalize some of the long-range Model Y sales though, but maybe Tesla dropped the price to $49,900 or something anyway. When you offer a variant of a vehicle at that much of a lower price, the demand goes up exponentially more. If we had 1.5 million a year for the long range, then okay, the standard range may drop the demand for those down to 1.2 million a year, possibly due to cannibalization, but there could be a demand for a further 2 million standard range Model Ys or more. Now, I'm talking about supply, and I assume that Tesla has done their modelling and will have the demand to back it up. If not, then surely dropping the price to $55,000 for the long range should solve that. Remember, Tesla have so much margin to work with here. So perhaps, within time, we're talking about 4 million Model Ys a year when Tesla finally ramp up and find the best market clearing price to meet their run rates. To be honest, I think it likely with their own in-house batteries that we get more variants too, to cover more price points to meet demand better. The long range might offer in excess of 350 miles of range, which should be easily achieved with the 4680 batteries. I think Tesla's in-house LFP batteries could possibly scrape close to a 300-mile range, which could be marketed as the mid-range, and then perhaps a standard range at around 250 miles of range. I think each of these cars will also have upgradable specifications to further enhance the performance, along with other software features. I mean, people are throwing numbers out of 10 million vehicles a year by 2025 or so, but they say these numbers generically without breaking down the actual models that will be sold, probably because it's too hard to simply claim Tesla can sell 4 million Model Ys a year. It's hard to believe with the price points they hit. But remember, the Model Y is not competing against the Corolla. There are about 6 million Audis, BMWs and Mercedes sold a year. These vehicles are of a similar price point to the Model Y. Don't get distracted by the Corolla price point or market. That's not for the Model Y. The compact Tesla would take care of that one. Now the Model 3, this is a much lower cost vehicle, but is however in a less desired market segment. Crossover SUVs are a larger seller, but even if the Model 3 sells just half as many Model Ys, then we're at 2 million, then a million Cybertrucks. Oh, and let's not forget how many compacts. I think I need to start doing some production estimates for 2025 soon. I'm still working on 2022, but is it possible for Tesla to hit 10 million vehicles a year by 2025? If not, then what about 2026? Would Tesla still be able to maintain 40 to 50% margins? Especially if FSD does become feature complete and level 5 autonomy is reached. We already have a 20% adoption rate of FSD in the US for the Model Y. With just $20,000 gross margin per vehicle, then we have $200 billion gross profit with 10 million sales. Hey, Toyota sells that many. This would factor in the Tesla Compact 2, which although may one day get down to $25,000, adjusted for inflation at least, well, I would feel fairly certain that Tesla would start with sales of a longer range equivalent, perhaps at $30,000, and maybe with 300 miles of range, or even more. Anyway, the numbers are all fairly loose and just for indicative purposes as usual, but I know you've all been thinking the same. I just thought I would follow through on it. But if this was the case, then surely we've surpassed a $10,000 stop price by 2025. You have the same data as me, and the consensus is that Tesla will be up to 4 to 6 million units a year when Texas and Berlin are ramped up, and that's likely only around the end of 2023. Sound unbelievable? Well, 2 million next year is what I'm predicting, although I haven't finished my forecast just yet, but as long as there are no major catastrophes, it should be at least that. Even at 50% increase for 2023 takes us to 3 million. Now remember, that's 3 million for the year. I'm saying a run rate of 4 to 6 million by the end of that year. But if we add 50% from the 2 million for 2022, then that comes to 3 million units for 2023. 50% again is 4.5 million units for 2024. Another 50% is 6.75 million for 2025 and over 10 million for 2026, which is, like I said, 10 million by 2025 or maybe 2026. Elon has also said we could maintain the 70% compounded annual growth rate that we've seen. And this is just with about 4 models: the Cybertruck, Model 3, Model Y and Compact. Sure, there are the upmarket models too and the Semi, but collectively they don't contribute overly to the 10 million. Tesla might bring out 10 or so more different models still. I would expect perhaps a compact crossover, a medium range SUV, and maybe a large SUV, a 2 and 4-door compact, just to give you an example. Tesla is not going to run out of demand. They can hit the desired demand required to hit these insane sales figures, not when they can launch so many other different types of models and variations. Although I do not expect a micro EV or neighborhood EV. I think they're too small and likely not safe enough for the brand. Besides, I've run the numbers for the Compact. At $25,000, there is no cheaper ICE alternative for cost of ownership. Oh, and I say that Tesla aren't eating the Toyota Corolla's market share, but the Toyota Prius, well, that's one of the most popular trade-ins Tesla receive, as is also the Nissan Leaf. Perhaps people are prioritizing Teslas over other assets. Like they'd rather have a slightly smaller house with a Tesla than a larger house without one. Maybe the product just is that desirable, especially when we factor in the lack of depreciation, making people feel comfortable purchasing a car as an asset rather than a liability. Okay, anyway, it's all about patience. This company is only at a run rate of about 1/10 where we may be in 2025 or 2026. 10 times more units on the way, with not too far off twice as much margin potential and OPEX significantly relatively lower. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.